Hey everybody, welcome to the Wait, What Are We Talking About podcast, episode 49. I am Bret, aka Enigma 9011, and today I'm joined by another member of the Kinda Funny community, and Cameron, aka Unsexiest Comedy. Cameron, thank you for being on the show. I do appreciate it.
Yeah, I'm happy to be here.
Yeah. Remember, guys, you can catch the podcast live over on twitch.tv/Enigma911 every first and third Saturday of the month at 8 p.m. Eastern. If you can't catch it live, that's A-OK. It's put over on YouTube the following week, broken out topic by topic, but also put as one big video for your amusement. Remember, guys, if you ever have a topic for us you'd like us to discuss, you can join the chat like Dio is right now, or you can post it in the comment section down below, and we might get to it later. And then, remember, this podcast is brought to you guys by the merch store. You can get all of your Enigma 9011 swag over there, t-shirts, cups, backpacks, and more. Help us out, rep the brand, support us. It would be greatly appreciated. So, Cameron, it's your first time on the podcast. Obviously, we'll get to the lightning round of questions and all that stuff later, but I kind of wanted to give everybody a little backstory on how we met real quick in our history, and then let you kind of introduce yourself and stuff like that. So I met Cameron real quick, briefly, at Kinda Funny Live 2. So that's 3 years ago, something like that, maybe four.
It'd be 3 years ago.
Yeah. So we met him there, and Cameron's actually the one who had introduced me to Greg Miller from Kinda Funny. We were at the Foundry. Greg showed up. I was just kind of loafing around, being my normal shadow mode self. I saw Greg was there. I was waiting patiently. Karen looks over to me. He's like, "Hey, have you met Greg yet?" I'm like, "Oh, no, I'll get to it, eventually." And he's like, "Oh, no, hold on. You need to meet Greg." And literally just, takes me and then moves his way through the crowd and is like, "Yo, Greg, this is Bret." And then, bam.
I did do that.
Yes, you did?
We had it, you and I had never spoken a word to each other before that moment.
Right. That was the first interaction.
That was, I'll be 100% honest, libations were involved, earlier in the evening. Because I remember doing that, but I did it for a couple of people, because when I met Greg Miller, that was the first thing that a friend did for me. Was one of the best friends who had met Greg before pulled me over, and because I tried to do the same thing, oh, I'm not sure, they always warn you never meet your heroes, but Greg Miller's the hero you want to meet. And so I got pulled over and I met Greg, and I was like, okay, and so at Kinda Funny Life 2, I saw people were kind of doing the same thing I did. I remembered what somebody else did for me, so I just paid it forward. That was kind of my whole intention with it. But I was, I wasn't drunk, but I had definitely been drinking that night. If I remember correctly, they had mojitos, half price. So I did that. But no, I was happy to do it for you. Bret, I can't hear you.
Let's see. How was that? 1 2 1 2 3 4. Stream's got me. Let's see. You don't have me. Great. Thought I went deaf. Nope. Let's try that.
Hey,
check.
Audio together.
All right. Oh. How about now?
Yeah, I can hear you now.
Okay, cool. Yeah.
I was like, man, Bret's really not saying anything.
No,
I'm wondering, is everything okay?
Miming. But yeah, I do appreciate that first interaction, and like I said, all the other ones at these past events have been quick and brief. I mean, nothing wrong with that, but hey, checking in, this, that, the other thing. So there's Kinda Funny Live 2, there's Kinda Funny Live 3, and then Prom being the most recent one.
Kinda Funny Live 3, you whooped my behind at Injustice.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. I was like, I'm pretty good at fighting games. Cool, Bret, it was great seeing you again.
Oops.
As I walked away, I was like, man, I thought it was like, man, I'm pretty okay at Injustice. I can beat a lot of my friends at it. And it's like, cool, Bret. It was great seeing you. I'll see you at the next one around.
Bye.
Bye.
Oh yeah, I
No,
think those.
we played a couple rounds of Injustice. That was
Yeah.
kind of Funny Life 3 during the VIP event.
Correct. Yeah, that was fun. I think that was right before I met Snowbike Mike for the first time. But
That's
that
before
whole
we all met Snowbike Mike.
true. Before he
Snowbike Mike had his
exploded.
debut there, and look at that guy now.
Yep, nuts. And then we had prom where you crashed in my hotel room, which was fun, and then you had an awesome persona and gimmick at the prom itself. If you want to explain that a little bit.
Okay, yeah. So first things first, I didn't have a place to stay because previously when I had gone to these events, like usually somebody reached out to me, so I didn't know. I'm like I don't know if I should reach out to anybody else. And by the time I finally got around to it, everybody had already had their things booked up and stuff put out. So I was like, wow, okay, like I could, and that's pretty much what I planned on doing. I was planning on basically like haunting every Denny's and like every 24-hour diner in San Francisco.
Yikes.
That was my plan. And then you said, oh, well, I'm not going to be there for the first night, but like you can crash with me afterwards. And I was like, oh, okay. And so that first night I actually just instead of going to a diner because I was pretty tired, so I just hung out in the lobby of the Hilton until their security started like being suspicious, and then I proceeded to play hide and seek for about like up until like 4 a.m. with their their staff.
Wow.
So, they weren't like looking for me because done it, like called in for security cameras to pinpoint where I was at, but like they were just being suspicious because obviously like a not well-dressed person is just like hanging out in your hotel,
right?
Like that's not good. Especially if you're the Hilton. And then I kind of like used the last few hours to just like take a nap outside of a friend's room, not inside their room because it was like 4 a.m, but outside their room. And then you came out by the next day, and I went over to the hotel you and I ended up staying at. You booked like a really classy place, like old, but like this place probably like in the 50s and 60s was like the hotel to be at.
For sure.
And they like renovated it, but like not really renovated it.
Yeah, it was.
They like brought it, like it was brought up to code, I think is the best way to put it. But no, I thought it was like such a like cool classic place. And then like you let me crash. I basically just like lived in the chair, like the recliner in your room, which worked out great. Like it was amazing. But it was like one of those great things where it's like, okay, we both had like plans of like what we were doing that weekend. So we didn't like, and they intersected at some points, but like we were going to be doing our own thing.
Right.
So it was really cool because it's like, okay, so like, is there going to be an obligation? And literally you showed up and you said, yeah, so I'm going to head over to a mall real quick and hang out with some friends. So you can just like chill here. Here's your key card later. And it's like, oh, cool. Okay. Like this is not going to, and it was like totally chill and awesome for the rest of the weekend. And that's basically how it happened. And then my persona that I had prom was, so like while in college, I neglected my physical health. And part of the repercussions of that is that I no longer fit into my 3 suit. I had tried to lose enough weight to try to get it back into it, but I couldn't. Like, I probably was about 5 to 10 pounds still too heavy for the jacket. Like I could put it on, but it was like way too snug and didn't fit.
Gotcha.
And so rather than do that, I was like, well, what can I do to change things up? What can I do to kind of like be there, do my own thing, but also like I don't have a date. Like I'm not with a prom group. Like because I was like, you know, I wasn't broke, but like I was definitely pinching my pennies that trip. Like I was able to make that trip work, but like I was definitely being careful about like where I was going, what I was spending, because I knew I had to do things once I got back home to like pay for some stuff. So yeah, I had to kind of be careful with that. But what ended up working out really well was like I was like, okay, well, what can I do to kind of like be part of prom with everybody else, but also just not be kind of like pathetic. and like being like, oh, okay, that's Cameron. He's on his own because he's broke AF. Oh, like I didn't want to be that guy who like people would be like, well, maybe we should. It's like, no, I want everybody to like be focused on having fun.
Right.
So I was like, what can I do? And I thought to myself, no, it'd be really fun is if I pretended to be a chaperone. There are two members of the Kind of Funny community, Moises Tavares and Eli Shaw. Two really amazing young men who at Kind of Funny Live 2, was it 2? Or was it 3? I'm thinking actually it was 3. Yeah, it was definitely 3. Kind of Funny Live 3. One night I drunkenly declared myself their father. And I promise, like, this is the second story I've told where alcohol was involved. I'm not a big binge drinker, or anything. But like, I wasn't, that night I was kind of drunk. So I broadly declared to the city of San Francisco, in the streets of San Francisco, that these two young men were my sons and that I loved them very much. And then over the course of the weekend, like, at one point, like, one of them got really, really wasted, and I took care of him. And he and they just said, "Oh, you're such a good dad. You're such a good father." And so like they call me father, and I call them my sons, and they're both really brilliant young men, really insightful writers, and just incredible young men that I'm extremely proud to just call my friends. And so I thought to myself, oh, no, it'll be fun is if I'm their chaperone because I'm like the dad coming to the event. It's like, so how do I sell this? So I put together an outfit that was basically slacks, like a plaid long sleeve shirt, that's like, but like a nice dress shirt, and then I forgot what the pattern's called, but it's like a very preppy pattern. I've had this sweater vest for like 14 years, and I wore that. And then I thought to myself, no, what would be even more hilarious is if I went around passing out rulers to people, telling them to make sure to keep enough room for the Holy Spirit. And so I ordered, and I'm like, okay, I'm buying $7 worth of rulers, like basic wood rulers. Like that can't be that many. No. And it was. I had like 60 plus. I had something like 60 rulers.
Goddamn.
And I went around, and later when I was actually in Twitter handle, and it would have been like a great networking opportunity. Like, I missed that opportunity. But I went around, and when I saw like couples like pressed up against each other, like close dancing during like slow songs, I would go like, excuse me, and then I would like put a ruler between the two, and I'd be like, okay, leave enough room for the Holy Spirit here, okay, folks. And I walked away, and there's actually one person, a friend of Kind of Funny, like the company, who Jackie Collins, who actually does PR for Riot. Okay. She's also like the baddest bitch in the industry. Like she is just like no holds bar, like one of the most intimidating people I've ever met in my life. And I didn't even talk to her. She was just wearing like this power outfit, like this incredible outfit that was just like, she was just radiating power and authority. And I thought, oh, maybe I should go up. And I was like, and in the middle of the thought, I cut myself off saying, are you an idiot? She will tear you to shreds. Like for you, it's a bit. For her, it's like something that she would just tear you apart of. How dare you even think to approach this magnificent person? Like walk away. And I did. And I talked to somebody later, and I was like, yeah, I had the idea to do that. Like, oh, it's a good thing you didn't do that. Because she would have torn you to shreds. And I'm like, I know. I felt that. It's like I saw my death ahead of me. Yep. And I like reel myself back. There you go. Yeah, so I just handed out like rulers I had in my back pocket, and over the course of the night, took some fun photos for prom. Got to dance a lot. Had a great time. Smash Mouth showed up. We had a private Smash Mouth concert at our prom themed party. It was like just an incredible night with friends, and just awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome night. And then afterwards, when everybody else went to like IHOPs or like late night diners, I walked back to our hotel, which was right by the prom, like where we were at prom. I was kind of surprised. I was like, wow, it was actually that close. And literally just like walked up, kicked off my shoes, and like went to bed.
Yep.
And were you already in the? You weren't at the hotel.
I think I was there. Yeah, I was KO'd.
Okay.
I didn't stay at the VIP thing too long, just because we were like really crammed in that room. It seemed. I was like,
and there was like no air conditioning.
Exactly. Yeah.
Oh no, I was too hot. My feet were killing me because of course they were killing me. I'd been dancing on.
Right.
And like I got in. Yeah, and you were asleep, and I just like kicked off the shoes, hopped in some PJs, and just like crashed hard.
Yeah.
So that's the story of prom, when you and I shared a room and bonded forever.
Yeah, that was a good time. Good time. Yeah, that character and persona, I don't know. I just always got a kick out of it.
It was a fun time. It was a fun time.
Yeah.
That and all the cocaine we had.
I mean, yeah, totally. California, why not? What?
California,
no.
California. Yeah, great us, boys. Let's go. I don't think cocaine is called that either. That's not even a real name for cocaine.
Yeah.
I sounded like a narc when I said that.
Damn.
Like not only did I sound like a narc, I sounded like an uneducated narc.
Yeah. All right.
I sounded like a guy from Minnesota who's never actually seen like cocaine before, which is fair because I'm a guy from Phoenix, Arizona. Cocaine before.
Yeah, that works.
So.
All right, Karen. So I'd like to get to my topic and ask you, because I know you're a big wrestling fan. I know you and Trevor go back and forth, it seems, every month with some Portillo bets, which I always love watching.
We actually retired that.
You did retire it. Oh, that's too bad. We
retired it. Yeah. No, it's okay. Because the bets required us to watch WWE pay-per-views or like the monthly events that they do, and they became way too painful for us to watch.
Gotcha. Okay. Fair enough.
Like it's just. They were not good. This last one was actually pretty okay. Like there were some pretty good matches. It's definitely been the most entertaining WWE pay-per-view in a long time. But that's not a high bar. Like I really feel like they put on like a really like pretty good WrestleMania, like a pretty dang good WrestleMania. And then after that was just like it's just been bad since then.
Gotcha.
Like I just feel like they're like creatively bankrupt at this point. Like I'm just not seeing anything good coming out of them. They had some really cool stuff, like, and not to like dump on the performers, because the athletes who are performing in WWE are still some of the best out there, but like they're just being totally underutilized, mismanaged, and the booking probably is going to be better going forward because Paul Heyman and Eric Bischoff are coming in now. And they're going to be running Raw and SmackDown respectively. Like they're going to be booking the shows, which is great because it just, like I said, they've kind of become creatively bankrupt at this point. Like they've just hit rock bottom creatively. Like there are things that they're doing do not make sense, but it looks like the right wrestlers are wrestling each other in the right programs right now. That's what it seems like. So.
Yeah, so you kind of went into part 2 already of what I was going to ask you about current day stuff, so that's good.
Oh, sorry. Yeah,
no, you're good.
I'm a pretty big wrestling junkie. I love wrestling. It is to me it is the greatest stage in the world. You literally have tens of millions, if not hundreds of millions of people around the world who, depending on their personal interest, watch a wrestling promotion and are dedicated to it and like love the sport. Like there is a premier athleticism going on with it. There is a premier entertainment aspect to it, and there is an incredible presentational aspect to it. It is the greatest stage. It takes the greatest combination of athletes and actors to pull off what they do, and a lot of times it doesn't get pulled off. Like it fails. There are literally like mountains of books written about the stuff that didn't work, but the stuff that does work literally is like ingrained into your mind for the rest of your life.
Absolutely.
So yeah, I'm a big wrestling junkie.
So when did you start getting into wrestling?
I was about 7 or 8 years old.
Okay.
I was walking up the stairs of my family's house and I saw my brother was watching something on like the upstairs TV, which was like a little like, gosh, that couldn't have been bigger than like 6 or 7 inches. This is back in the day. And this little tiny TV, and I walk upstairs and I see what I think is Batman. Batman's come down to save somebody. But I'm like, that's not Batman, because this guy's actually using like an actual bat, like not the animal, but like this is like Batman but with a baseball bat. And I'm like, this guy is like, he's warding off all these like biker looking dudes, and he like grabs the guy who he's saving and he hooks him up to this repelling equipment that he came down on, and he has them like go back up. And it is just, and I'm like, what is this? I go to my brother, I'm like, Josh, what is this? Was that Batman? And he goes, no, that was Sting. I'm like, what? And so from that moment on, my brother introduced me to wrestling, because my brother was an 80s wrestling kid.
Okay, yeah.
Like through the early 90s. And so like my brother at like 5 or 6 years old like met Hulk Hogan when he stopped at like the small motel where my parents worked at the time. Like that was my dad's second job, and my mom was like the assistant manager there. My dad was the manager. And so like at the Continental Breakfast, like my mom's like, oh, you're Hulk Hogan. Of course he's Hulk Hogan. He's one of the famous people in the world. Now for the wrong reasons.
Right.
And my brother's like, yeah, like, and she my dad to like bring my older brother down, and so my brother like has a picture. Like I don't think there was a picture. He just got to meet Hulk Hogan.
Yeah.
Who I'm pretty sure he told, make sure you eat your vitamins so you can get these 26-inch pythons, brother. Like, I'm pretty sure he did all this shit. But like, yeah, like, so like my brother's been has been into wrestling since he was a kid. And then as like a teen, in his early teens, because my brother's 5 years older than me, like he introduces me to wrestling, and I'm coming in during like the best period in the world for wrestling. This is the Attitude Era / Monday Night War era. Sting had just started going to Crow Sting. Like Hogan was NWO Hollywood Hulk Hogan. Like he had the belt that he had spray painted NWO. This was the time to be a WCW fan. And my parents had an issue with the Attitude Era in WWF at the time. And so, but I had a friend whose parents like let him watch that, and that's what he watched. And so Tuesday during recess or in the morning before school started, we would give each other like reports of like what happened.
Okay.
Like what's the current angles going on, and like telling from the story. Like he's telling me about Kane and the Undertaker and Stone Cold Steve Austin. And so and I'm telling him about Sting and Hulk Hogan. And so we're telling each other about these.
That's
things.
awesome.
And then like he told me, he's like, guess what? My dad ordered the pay-per-view for WWF, like one of the in your houses. And it was just, and he's like, and Kane pinned Stone Cold Steve Austin. And I'm like, what? No way! Like, you're blowing my mind. And yeah, and so it was just great. And then like Starrcade happened, and Sting pinned Hulk Hogan. Or rather, he made him tap out with the Scorpion Deathlock. Like it was a great time to be a wrestling fan. And then I realized wrestling wasn't real, and I stopped watching wrestling.
Okay, so how long was the hiatus from realizing that to kind of getting back into it?
14 or 15 years.
Okay, all right. What?
That's a long gap.
Yeah, definitely. I get that. What drew you back in per se?
What drew me back in was Sting, actually. What got me into wrestling in the first place got me back into wrestling.
Wow, okay.
Sting, and I saw the headline, WCW legend Sting appears in a WWE ring, which was just like mind-boggling.
Yeah, that was
like,
nuts.
There's no way this happened. There's no way that happened. Like he's been like TNA, he retired from TNA.
Yep.
He's done with wrestling.
Yep.
And I look it up, and sure enough, I watched he shows up out of nowhere at Survivor Series.
Yeah, that was awesome.
Takes out like it's just the coolest thing in the world. He like helps them win.
Yep.
Like the good guys win that fight. And like just an awesome moment to see. Like, and I'm like, okay, like I'm not gonna get back into wrestling, but like pay attention.
Uh-huh.
And so I started watching, like I kept an eye on the Bleacher Report. I'm like watching some YouTube videos when Sting shows up. And then WrestleMania is happening, and it's like, you know what? I've never signed up for it before, and they don't do pay-per-views anymore. It's the WWE Network. So I signed up for the WWE Network. I watched a couple of Raws leading up to the WrestleMania. I kind of got the gist of like what all the angles were going to be. And then I watched WrestleMania, and I saw WrestleMania 31, which was an incredible spectacle of incredible wrestling from the people who I had no idea who they were. I saw the Andre Battle Royale, like Andre Memorial Battle Royale. Big Show won. And I was like, oh, they had the Big Show win this trophy. And then, but I was like, who? All in matching outfits, and then I'm like, who's the Miz and Mizdow? Like, what's going on with this whole thing? And then I get to the actual show where the actual matches are. I see like this brutal ladder match for the Intercontinental title that Daniel Bryan eventually wins. And I was like, oh, cool. I've caught up with like who Daniel Bryan is. I know who that is. I'm really glad. And of course, this is right before he went into his temporary retirement for a few years.
Yeah.
And then I see what really this is the match that got me back into wrestling. Was Seth Rollins versus Randy Orton.
Okay.
And I'm like, this is a really good, intense match going on. And I'm like, okay, so like, oh, okay, he's gonna do his curb stomp move, and Seth Rollins runs to do his curb stomp move. But when he puts his foot on the back of Randy Orton's head, Randy Orton then takes Seth Rollins, thrusts him into the air, and Seth Rollins is like, 8-10 feet in the air. Going like planking in the air, and Randy Orton like lays him into an RKO, and I'm just like, what is this athleticism? This is incredible. And I realized in between when I stopped watching and when I started watching, I had a small stint as a amateur actor.
Okay.
In local theater here in Phoenix, and particularly in Mesa and Gilbert, which is like two sleeping suburbs out, like in the Phoenix metro area.
Okay.
But one of the last things I ended up doing was something, the Black Mustache melodrama theater. And so I had actually practiced melodrama, and was a melodrama actor. Granted, I was a comedic actor. Like my parts were always comedic. Like I played and before I say this, I need to preface. I played a white Mexican. Like it's in the story that he's white.
Okay, all right.
Because there are white Mexicans.
Yeah.
Notable scumbag Louis C.K. happens to be one of them. But they don't let that cloud your judgment on that. But a white Mexican who was married, and I played both him and his wife.
Oh, okay.
So that was also my first experience cross-dressing. And I did this, and I was like, I really fell in melodrama and kind of how it works. And what I realized is wrestling is the most incredible and the most advanced melodramatic acting and presentation and stage performance in the world. And with that kind of understanding, I came way more fully into appreciating wrestling on a way deeper level than I even did as a kid. Like I loved wrestling with a deep passion. And even as a kid, I wanted to be a wrestler because, of course, I did.
Yep, everybody.
But yeah, everybody wanted to be a wrestler. But I realized, and looking back, like I kind of like I do the same thing that every other, backseat quarterback or backseat driver, armchair quarterback does. Like, maybe I could have made it. Get myself in shape, going to wrestling school. Because I spent 4.5 years, in call centers. Like I could have done that and gone to wrestling school. But no, and it's like I'm almost 30. Like, don't get me wrong. Like Diamond Dallas Page didn't start wrestling till he was 40. But that I'm not Diamond Dallas Page. I don't think that I could wrestle. Like, I'm not one of those people. But I really I found a deeper understanding and appreciation of the art that these artists put themselves out there to do. And I just became heavily invested in the WWE product. I became more invested in the independent product. I started watching way more of New Japan Pro Wrestling. I discovered this Omega just before the rest of the world did. Like, I found out about him like just before like the rest of the world like blew up about Kenny Omega, who is, in my opinion, one of the two, if not the greatest wrestlers in the world, and definitely up there with the contention of possibly one of the greatest of all time.
Okay.
He's known as the world's best bout machine for a reason. He's an incredible athlete, an incredible storyteller in the ring. What really got me into New Japan Pro Wrestling, though, was Kenny Omega's first match with the other person who I would call in contention for the title of the best wrestler in the world, Kazuchika Okada. And Okada versus Omega, like, they're a trilogy of matches. A trilogy of matches? No, it's a quadrilogy of matches. Sorry, I was like, no, there's another one. Because Okada won the first one. Oh no, I'm sorry. Okada won the first one. They went to a draw on the second one. Because in the first match, Kenny Omega never hit his finisher, and people were saying like Kenny Omega could have won if he had hit his finisher. And they were saying like, you know, the press, especially the international press, were all talking about Kenny Omega, and so Okada was like, well, no, I'm going to show you where I'm going to beat you the second time, and then everybody's going to talk about me and New Japan Pro Wrestling because you're a Gaijin, you're a white guy.
Yeah. And
this is our wrestling. And the second match went to a 60-minute draw. And the second match quite possibly is the most devastating, like, emotional, tormenting match I've ever seen in my life. The third match was a 30-minute time limit match that Kenny Omega barely won, and it was during the G1 Climax, which is a massive tournament they do.
Yep. And
the fourth match they had is where Kenny decisively won against Okada and took the New Japan Pro Wrestling heavyweight championship off of him, and then carried that title for a while. Kenny Omega helped them expand their brand into the United States to the point where now, like, people regularly understand, like, Kenny Omega and Kazuchika Okada together, a quadrilogy of matches that I think is, like, it's tough to say because people look back at, like, I think it's the 5-part series of, the 5-part series of Ric Flair and Ricky the Dragon Steamboat, and, like, their 5-part series is, like, epic as well, and, like, emotionally charged, and, like, storytelling, but it's like 80s wrestling. So as far as like modern wrestling, I consider Okada, Omega, like their series of matches to be like the pinnacle of wrestling, like storytelling, like long-term storytelling over the course of a couple of years with like drama, everything like that, but without the backstage production, without any of that. Like, it just happened naturally in the ring. These were two alpha athletes who wanted to prove that they were the best, and they are just the stuff that like they had to trust each other to do to each other is insane. Kenny Omega gave Okada a tiger suplex in their first match, and like a lot of people, including myself, couldn't believe that Okada didn't break his neck when he landed, because the tiger suplex on its own is a dangerous move from the top rope. It's basically suicide.
Yeah,
but they landed it perfectly, so Okada was fine. Well, I say fine. He definitely did the neck thing.
Right.
Like, these 4 matches are just like the pinnacle of what wrestling is as a modern art today. I'm with Dave Meltzer, who's a very famous, very historic wrestling critic. I've been putting out a newsletter for the last 30 plus years that he's been covering wrestling. Has like the biggest encyclopedia mind for wrestling out there. And he says, like, you can't really compare old wrestling and new wrestling because the styles are just so different. Like, Ric Flair in the 80s is different than Ric Flair in the 90s.
Yep.
Ric Flair in the 70s is way different than Ric Flair in the 80s during his heyday. Like, you see wrestling evolve as an art, as a combat entertainment, so to speak. Because it's not necessarily, it is scripted, it is predetermined, but that doesn't change what they're doing in the ring. So, yeah, I think that answers your question. in a very long, drawn out manner.
Hey, that's all right. I'm learning a lot about your fandom, and it kind of falls into my next question, which is going to be how much of the independent scene you're into. It seems like you're into a lot. Like for me personally, I've pretty much been WWE through and through. I didn't watch any of the Attitude Era. Like I had glimpses of the 80s, like the Rockers and Hulk, obviously with like through VHS tapes that my parents had. And then in like 2006, that's when I started getting back into wrestling. And
during the Ruthless Aggression era.
Yeah.
Dude, you're also a trooper. You went through the hard times that people talk about. Like I had already been long gone, but you went through like the transformation from Ruthless Aggression to the PG era, which
Yep.
Where John Cena went from being Professor of Thugonomics to everyday Superman.
Yep.
Like the FU turns into the Attitude. The five knuckle shuffle becomes he had to transform his entire thing because it was all about being edgy without actually being provocative.
Right.
And then he needs to go PG because he suddenly becomes the face of the company, and also he never loses. Like that's the beginning of the Superman John Cena momentum that we saw.
Yeah. So that was when I started to get back into it, and then WrestleMania 23 was like my coming out party of like, this is exactly what I want. And I mean, Hardy Boys I latched myself onto immediately, along with early CM Punk, which that continued throughout, in ring. And then I watched a little bit of TNA, kind of get invested in that for a while until things started burning ship the first time, but seems like they recovered, or at least are doing something. But I honestly haven't really gone out of that circle too much. I've watched a little Ring of Honor here and there. New Japan, I know people, but I've never really watched any events. And then AEW obviously just started, but I haven't watched any of their events. But also, obviously they're on the radar, so I keep tabs on what's going on and who's there. But I want to kind of know what your realm of the indie spectrum is, I guess.
So I'm not as deep as kind of like what you mentioned. I am just about as deep as I would say I know the big promotions. The real indie scene, like the true blue indie scene, is the indie circuit that people who wrestle make, like they either get a hot dog or a slice of pizza or like $30. Like that's what they get for wrestling then. Like that's the real indie scene. Like that's the Ring of Honor, New Japan Pro Wrestling, AEW, all quote unquote indies aren't, or even Pro Wrestling Guerrilla and SoCal. Like these aren't actual like actually I would call PWG Pro Wrestling Guerrilla. I'd probably actually call indie, like because there are actually folks who have been part of that crowd since like the beginning who like their seat, like nobody sits in their seats because everybody knows those are those guys' seats, and I'm talking about audience members. Like these are like the same like 6 guys have been going like to every event.
Yeah.
So like I would actually call them like they are true blue like independent wrestling. I'd say they're what I would consider like the pinnacle of independent wrestling. Ring of Honor is where you start getting into.
It's like a whole new bracket. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a different bracket. You're starting to get into like the minor leagues at that point.
Right.
You go from independents to the minors. But the thing is, because of the internet and because of how wrestling is, like the internet wrestling community, the IWC is now, things have equalized a lot.
Yeah,
like,
for sure.
WWE is still the pinnacle. Like WWE is still, honestly, that's never going to change.
Yeah.
Vince McMahon has over the past, 35, 40 years, he has consumed and propped up and created a, it's funny that the name of the company is called Titan, Titan Entertainment, but because they truly are, like, they are the juggernaut, they are the Titan, and it's not going away anytime soon because of what you just said about yourself, brand loyalty. WWE is a brand that is unparalleled in wrestling. It is unparalleled in brand marketing. Like WWE is one of the most recognizable brands in the world. To the point where like people in China and India and South Korea, and like China is trying. Like there are Chinese wrestlers right now who are trying to start like the independent scene in China right now. Like there's the English independent scene, which has been stalwart for years, but the problem with the independent scene in England is eventually people get to the point where like they need to leave England to get bigger.
Right.
That's what you see with Prince Devitt, who eventually became Finn Balor.
Yep.
You see that with there's just a numerous amounts. People, Zack Sabre Jr.
Yep.
Becky Lynch is a great example as well.
Will Ospreay is
Will Ospreay. Will Ospreay is 100% considering the fact of New Japan now. I would, as far as like the white guy Gaijin, okay, sorry.
No, you're good.
Tech for somebody asking me about something that really does not matter right now. What was I saying? Oh yeah, so like Will Ospreay in Switchblade, Jay White are like the kind of white faces of New Japan Pro Wrestling, and cool enough, actually, I think Kota Ibushi is kind of the poster child for the current Japanese era.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
Kota Ibushi's awesome.
Yeah.
If you don't know about Kota Ibushi, he is known as the Golden Lovers with Kenny Omega. And if that sounds a little homoerotic to you, it's because it is. They have kissed during matches before. They are like the ambiguity there, thin. And it's very much of a we all understand, but nobody is directly saying anything because it's not appropriate for anybody to kind of put their 2 cents in. But their reunification last year, like you can watch some montages of people going over like both their careers as they came together as a tag team, split apart, what happened after that. Like there's great videos out there of like their return, and every time I watch one I tear up because like when they finally embrace in the ring with the streamers coming down, like it's a beautiful moment for their friendship, for their relationship, and like it's what the two of them have done over the course of like the last 10-15 years just like 10 years in Japanese wrestling, the kind of conventions that they've pushed and the things that they've done to kind of like change up how wrestling sees LGBT has been pretty astonishing for how quickly they've been able to change things in like Japanese wrestling, which is far more conservative and takes itself far more seriously than American wrestling, which came from carnies and sideshows. So, but yeah, like so when I say like where I'm at as far as like what I pay attention to, I try to keep my fingers on the pulse of AEW. They're going to start actually doing a weekly show on Monday nights.
It's October, right?
October, yeah. In October, they're going to do it on TNT. And a lot of people are like, "Oh, it's bring back the Monday Night Wars." It's like, no, WWE is still going to be WWE.
Right.
The reason why WWE will never get rid of its third hour is because of all the advertising money they make. Like nothing parallel to it. AEW is trying very hard to be something totally different. They're trying to elevate the art of what's been the independent scene, the New Japan scene, the Ring of Honor scene, and elevate it to a true pro wrestling level of production.
Right.
And luckily they have the backing of the Khan family, who the Jaguars, and like one of the most successful soccer league teams. Like they're a very successful family, multi-billionaires, and they're willing to go to bat for this company to elevate it to becoming not the next biggest thing, but to establish it as a big thing.
Yeah. And
that is super important for the industry, because competition, the diversity of promotions is always a good thing.
Absolutely.
So like I'm just keeping my finger on the pulse of like what's going on in WWE, and like New Japan Pro Wrestling and AEW. Like those three are really the ones that I pay attention to the most.
Okay. All right, and then I guess my last question to kind of wrap up this topic is, what would be, you've already listed off some names of people you really enjoy, but what are some wrestlers from any era that you would say maybe are your favorite? Yeah, hard-hitting questions.
That's rough. A lot of people would probably expect me to say something like Hulk Phenomena that was Hulk Hogan, but he sucked. My top wrestlers from different eras, I'd say 80s wrestling, like 80s like Southern wrestling, which is where you got like the really good matches, the long matches with a lot of there's a lot of technicality. Like technical wrestling is something that is much more of a niche or something of a display, but that was like the norm back in the 80s.
For sure.
And the best technical wrestling I think you saw was during the Four Horsemen era, with Ric Flair, Arn Anderson, like the whole wrecking crew right there. The four of them were extremely dominant wrestlers, and they dominated 80s to early 90s wrestling. Arn Anderson still has the best spine buster in the business. The last time he put it out on TV, still the cleanest, smoothest spine buster you'll ever see. Ric Flair is, of course, arguably, if not undisputedly, greatest of all time, just in all the eras that he's affected wrestling. He is the leather handbag of wrestling that wrestling still carries and totes around and brings out for things. He's the old withered leathery trophy that WWE gets to keep. But he's also a man who's gone through a lot in his life. He's had a lot of hardship, and he's expressed the pain and hardship that he's had with extravagance and incredible shows of affluence. There really is no other human being like Flair. That's why people love him. Then you have I would say that's Ric Flair is really a great pinnacle of wrestling. Even though 90% of his matches are him getting beat up until he cheats his way to victory. Yep. Which is the best. Then you have Sting, and the Sting, the NWO phase, the split of NWO Hollywood, NWO Wolfpack. Crow Sting, Sting's my favorite wrestler of all time. Really, if you want to talk about it, he is my favorite wrestler. And it's really unfortunate that his last match was one where he got injured. Yeah. But I love Sting. Sting's one of my favorites. But if we're talking the modern era I think has the best example of great wrestling that we've seen in possibly ever. The plethora of talent, the vastness, the exhaustive amounts of just riches that we have in wrestling today is crazy. You have Kazuchika Okada, who's basically Japan's answer to Ric Flair. Granted, it's coming 30 years later, but it is 100. He is 100% the answer of can Japan put out an athlete like Ric Flair? Which undoubtedly, by the end of Kazuchika Okada's career, it is very reasonable to say that he will stand at the same pinnacle as Ric Flair. He is that incredible of a wrestler. He is that incredible of a personality. He has had multiple times the opportunity to come to WWE, to come to America, but he has stayed in New Japan to stand there and say, this is the true mountain that people need to climb, is in New Japan. Japanese wrestling, Dio knows, Rainmaker. It's not the same now that Ghetto's not there just to yell at in the middle of matches, but it's just by the end of his career, we will likely be talking about him in the same vein, in the same reverence that we refer to Ric Flair in, which I don't think you can say about any other wrestler, except, and this is really where it comes down to, where Kenny Omega's career goes from here, now that he's a vice president at AEW, now that he's pretty much going to be exclusively wrestling for AEW. What happens with AEW will kind of define the rest of his career. Right. Its success or failure is very much hinging on him and a few other talents, really carrying the brand forward and establishing it. I think that his recent matches have been phenomenal. His recent match with Chris Jericho, I think, is incredible. The finish is dumb because the Judas effect is it's a very actually very efficient MMA move, but for the theatrical showing of wrestling, of pro wrestling, it does not have the same flair as really anything else. The MMA elbow is very non-showing. Gotcha. And because here's the thing, you can't really throw the elbow in wrestling because you could seriously injure your opponent, which is not what you want to do in pro wrestling. And so it never looks as good, and it's just never as good because of it. And Chris Jericho's an absolute consummate professional, and so he tries to make that move look as good as it can. But he's trying, like, he's doing something new with it. One of his finishers that, like, nobody, like, people will put on the bottom of his list, and this, of course, is the man with known for 1,005 holds. That's an inside wrestling joke. I just realized that does not carry well.
It's all right. The hardcore will get it.
Mid-90s cruiserweight wrestling, WCW, and like his feud with Dean Malenko. Like, if you're not familiar with that, that means nothing to you. So Kenny Omega, I think Chris Jericho is one of the greatest of all time too, but he's really, like, his back and forth, coming back again, leaving again, like in wrestling, has been he'll define the end of his career here. Kenny Omega, I think, is at that pinnacle as well. Like I said, where he goes from here. So I would say Kenny Omega, Kazuchika. Jon Moxley. Jon Moxley, now that he's wrestling in New Japan, the stuff that he's done in New Japan recently. So he's technically signed with AEW, but he has an open contract where he can go wrestle in Japan if he wants, or wrestle anywhere that he wants. And so he's been in New Japan, kind of rebuilding his brand as Jon Moxley. And he actually had an amazing match with a wrestler over there called Ishii, who, it was a brutal match. Such a great match.
Is he still U.S. champ? I think so. Right?
Dean Ambrose?
Yeah.
Or Jon Moxley?
Yeah.
Jon Moxley doesn't. No, Jon Moxley hasn't been.
I thought he beat Juice Robinson for it.
Oh, he did beat Juice Robinson for it. I think he still is. Yeah.
AKA CJ Parker. Miss you. But yeah, he's been doing
Juice
good.
Robinson is never coming back as he.
Yeah,
him and who else was it? Was it Peter Gabriel, who used to be in the Nexus?
No. That wasn't CJ, but that's a different guy. Fuck.
No. I know it's a different guy.
Oh, okay. PJ Black?
No, TJ Black is Seth Rollins' old alias.
Right. Shit.
No,
I know exactly what you're talking about, but
whatever that guy is, the member of the
Justin
Nexus.
Gabriel. Thank you, Dio.
Thanks, Dio. Justin Gabriel and Juice Robinson left during an era where people who left WWE will probably never go back to it. Because their exit, their pseudo terminations were brutal. PJ Black, you are correct. Thank you. Yeah. So anyway, Juice Robinson's never gone back to WWE.
Yeah, I heard that in his podcast with Jericho, that he was like, "Nah, I'm good. I'm happy what I'm doing in Japan." I mean, I liked him in NXT. I know he was more jobber-esque, but I enjoyed him. I thought he was a good character.
Juice is just a great wrestler. He's fun. He's flashy. People. He's living the life, man. He's living the life of the independent wrestler.
Yep.
I hate calling them independent wrestlers when they're out there. He's a championship wrestler at a major promotion, and just because it's not WWE, people call it independent. But the reality is that New Japan is more historic, has longer history,
right? And
its championships are more respected than a lot of the WWE championships, because. There are so many cases that I could just bring up. Champion, it's just dumb. Why would you do that? There are too many. Anyway, but yeah, that's it. So those four, I would say, are
cool.
Well, that and okay, I should also mention, of course, honorable mentions. Undertaker, John Cena, because even though everybody loves to hate John Cena, we love to hate John Cena. John Cena's comeback, because he played the straight card, he played the straight man, the good guy card for such a long time. We can't even hate him.
Right.
We'll shout that we hate John Cena or John Cena sucks, but that's now just a thing we chant.
It's like Angle, kind of.
Yeah, it's basically Angle. Yeah, that's it. 100%. You suck. As John Cena sucks. They're in the same thing at this point. Young kids always say, "Let's go Cena," and then in response, all the adults yell, "Cena sucks."
Yep.
That is a standard cheer and chant at WWE events with John Cena. That's just how it is. When John Cena comes out and it goes to the point where it's dur, 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 everybody shouts, John Cena sucks, and it's great. It's great. It's a moment for us all to bond. However, this also leads to rowdy, unearned, "This is awesome" chants or whatever else, because the chants in WWE are, when I went to a WWE Raw event, I was upset because I could not stand just the blatant disrespect the crowd had for what was going on in the ring. I went with Trevor Starkey. We did the entire Royal Rumble weekend in Phoenix, and I was actually super sick and could not go to SmackDown, which I regret, because SmackDown apparently the crowd was definitely much better than it was on Raw.
Oh, okay.
Raw, the crowd ruined what could have been a really great post Royal Rumble month between Ronda Rousey and Becky Lynch, because they harangued and harassed Ronda Rousey because she wasn't Becky Lynch. It was very much that. And also, we were sitting around some real total jackasses.
Great.
Yep. Yep. But yeah, no, so, that's wrestling.